All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Rashed Alananzeh. I am the current co-president of the nonprofit, and I'm here with Chris. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Christopher Gaski. I'm a former fellowship student and the current public outreach liaison for Envision Difference. I'm a junior at Tufts University currently.
Wonderful. Great. Just to sort of give a little bit background, I current medical student at UCLA, hoping to be done soon and move on to residency. And today I'm actually joined with Chris. We'd love to talk about his initiative and what led to the creation of our original work of Boots in the Ground. Back in 2019, me and two fellow students started the nonprofit, and we actually started with Boots in the Ground work, which included us going into the street, Lena Cass Boulevard in Massachusetts Avenue, where there is a homeless encampment or unhoused encampment. And we used to do sandwiches, food, water, and specifically after the COVID pandemic, it became extremely difficult to continue, unfortunately, with boots in the ground work. Despite that, we continued with our best efforts. For Christmas, we provided some gear that the unhoused community could use. And our mission statement sort of shifted a little bit towards something else. And we started focusing on the stigma and doing a lot of research. And that's how we actually got introduced to Chris. As he said, he's a fellowship student. And earlier last year, he came to me and said, I have this idea in mind, would love to talk about it. So my first question for you would be, what sort of inspired the boots in the ground for you? And how did that idea evolve within Envision Difference? What motivated you to start it?
Of course. So, as you said, I started out as a fellowship student, and originally the person who recruited me was another one of the board members, Yahya. And originally, when he gave me the pitch about, here, I want you to apply to join the Envision Difference program, he told me about, the past and the mission statement, everything that you just talked about with doing the groundwork from before. And he told me that in addition to being a fellowship student and helping work on research projects, I would also be able to, help give back to the community. Um, in high school, I did a ton of community service, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I was part of the Red Cross, Operation Smile. In college, I continued it by doing the Brain Exercise Initiative and going to elderly homes and helping them to kind of work their brains in order to prevent dementia and things of that nature. And so when I ended up getting here and working on the research project as a fellowship student, I found that there wasn't as much opportunity, like you said, for the boots on the ground work as there had been previously, obviously due to constraints with COVID and things of that nature. So I really wanted to have a way to both be a part of this community at Envision Difference, which I loved so much and had a great experience with, but also wanted to be able to have another section of the program dedicated not only to research projects, but specifically getting back out there and providing our mission statement on a physical front. And so originally, my idea was for this Boots on the Ground program, and it was going to be pretty basic as just a way for Envision Difference to go and do some good work at different nonprofits around the area and kind of give back to different homeless communities and things of that nature. But over time, it definitely evolved. And in its current state, which is actually called, I think, the Difference in Action Initiative right now, which we have an Instagram that you can go and check out. And we would love to see that. We have our first posts up on there, which we would love for you guys to see. But it eventually evolved into a broader concept of being able to really help the unhoused in any way that we can. So, as the mission statement of Envision Difference was to, it now is to alleviate the stigma and help mental health of the unhoused. We kind of worked with that and wanted to expand on it. Sorry, and so what the current goal is for the Difference in Action Initiative is to be able to fill in gaps that we see in the community, specifically revolving around mental health and the unhoused. So currently, we've been going to different mental health, or not mental health, sorry. Currently, we've been going to different unhoused institutions and being able to not only provide our service as just extra hands, which is always needed for places like that, but also to kind of ask them what they're lacking currently or what they think that we could help with additionally. And in that nature, provide almost a meta kind of support for the Boston network currently, hopefully expanding soon, but to really give back in the most appropriate way possible, especially towards right now the unhoused community, and then through mental health resources, which is through our capstone mostly.
Absolutely. And I must say, Chris, you've outshined yourself as a fellowship student. You've done amazing, phenomenal work. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of saw this coming. I could tell your passion and motivation for it. And you said something that's very important, which sort of connects us back to our core mission, especially around the mental health of the unhoused. And you said that you go into the community and ask these questions. And I can't help but recall when I was an undergrad at Boston University and going into the community and saying, what is it that you guys need? And that really sort of flourished our boots in the ground initially. And it is honestly reflecting on it, it was such a good opportunity for me not to only learn about my community, but how I can personally help. And seeing this initiative sort of grow from an idea to an actual action has really been fulfilling, in all aspects. And I must give you props on that because, leading this nonprofit certainly has not been easy. There's ups and downs. There's financial difficulties at some points, especially with the COVID pandemic. And having the ability to do that is not easy. So, you've described some of the primary goals of the initiative. What I want to ask you is, from your perspective now as a leader at Envision Difference, what does success for you mean when it comes to this initiative? Let's say a year from now or 5 years from now. How do you envision that to be how would you envision that?
Yeah. Well, as I talked about a little bit, expansion is primarily what I'm looking for currently. Again, as someone who's interested in the healthcare field and going into the brain, I'm super, super interested and have a passion for not only helping other people, but specifically going towards the mental health arena and really kind of solving some of the major problems there, which have been a major plague on the US and the world in general. Um,
Absolutely.
so for this program, success, especially currently, would be to have more hands in different pots, so to speak. So currently, we do have a little bit of a limited pool of volunteers, just in that it's the pilot year and we just had our pilot event. Um, but success would mainly be to have a lot more volunteers currently than we do. And so obviously any support from anyone is definitely warranted. I would say that success in its most pure form is a physical view of the impact we've had in our community. So currently we have established relations with the Bread of Life Foundation, which has a main location in Malden that we were able to go to, able to talk to the people, able to contribute to. And we're starting to work on the follow-ups with that and fill in gaps that they needed and they told us about, especially in regards to the community itself. Um, I would say that success on that front would be to have a greater connection to a lot more different unhoused communities and different areas of Boston right now. So within the next couple of years, hopefully we would have a stronger team with all currently dedicated and passionate volunteers, which we do have currently, but also to have a stronger relationship to each of these different institutions currently so that we can have the greatest outreach specifically for this initiative and its goals. Um, I would say that currently, because of the newer aspect of it, that having mostly in Boston, different areas around it, so in the north end and the south end, that would be the most ideal. So any different institutions or organizations that we can reach out to and establish a healthy relationship with where they can ask us for stuff and we can always go back down and help them out with whatever they need would be ideal. And then theoretically, 5 years out, would be to expand to more than just Boston. I know that Envision Difference is mainly located around the Boston area, but growing it to be something that doesn't only have to be through the physical impact we can have in Boston, but through different states and having different branches as we have more volunteers from areas that maybe we haven't been able to touch upon at all. And additionally, as I was talking about with seeing a physical change in at least the community, would
Right.
be more of our publicity that we've been trying to do, more of the awareness that we're trying to spread about people going and helping these communities, even not through us, but just in general, being able for them to go and to provide support in any way they can to any of these institutions, I think would be honestly super ideal and super impactful for helping this unhoused community and for helping the mental health of them as well, to see all these people coming and caring for them, which obviously has a big impact on how they see themselves and how they see the Boston society and society of America at large. And then to touch upon something that I briefly mentioned is our capstone projects, and those are more than the service events that we do. So
Right.
that would be something on a larger scale that takes a couple months to a year to plan. And currently, we have one planned for this year that we're going to start working on soon. All things going well. But ideally, we would have much larger scale things. So things that maybe involve the state government or things that involve multiple communities bringing them together. Different ways that we can have a larger impact that isn't necessarily just providing hands-on experience and filling in gaps that are needed, but something that on a larger scale provides something that we see as a whole as a trend that we can support. So currently ideas like going to different like elementary schools or preschools and being able to teach them about the impacts of mental health and the necessity to help out and do community service such as we have been with the unhoused community, that would ideally be able to provide what we're kind of seeing a trend with, which is a lack of interest in helping, but also, a lack of understanding of what these people are going through, which in turn leads to less attention paid to them, less care given to them, things of that nature. So I would say that a consistent and larger scale capstone projects going forward into the future would also be a very good definition of success and would be a very good hallmark of a physical representation of the effort and the change that we're producing in the community.
Well, which I think is really important. And you touched on a couple of points that originally when we were talking about this idea that I really was able to connect with. And one of the things that we have always aimed to do is to not only have an impact in our actual organization, but beyond that. And you mentioned something that's very important that I want to touch up on is the idea of motivation that is sort of given to others to help the community. And I like to think of Boston as a close-knit community. Boston is one of the leading cities in addressing the unhoused crisis, specifically after 2014 when the Long Island Bridge was taken down. So seeing that in the project really sort of brought back a lot of memories for me because in the beginning we wanted to not only have this small impact but a larger one at that. And you mentioned another point that I just want to touch up on is the fact that despite the location of where we are, we've always done the work that we needed to do. For example, the old co-president, Josh, he was at Stanford. I'm now at UCLA. We have people who are across the United States who are working, hard throughout the days, despite what they have going on, to make this big impact. And I really enjoyed that because that was really the core foundation of that. And seeing that flourish with one of the fellowship students like yourself to become now a leader was one of the goals that we aimed for. And now seeing it in action, it really is a great opportunity for me and for everyone involved. I do also want to give a shout out to Bread of Life. I think they're an amazing organization. We worked with them in the past. Now we have this sort of relationship where we've also included extra days where they can provide food and we provide the volunteers. So of you out there who are listening would love to volunteer, please reach out to us. We are in shortage and in need of volunteers. Our community is a close-knit one. We'd love to sort of get you all connected to help out Envision Difference, Bread of Life, and other organizations, like you said. And I think those goals, honestly, are amazing, phenomenal goals. And I think with somebody like you leading it, we'll be able to reach them not in just 1 year, 2 years, but in 5 years. And I think one day we'll look back at these videos and podcasts and say, wow, we've come so far, just like I'm now reflecting on that. So I think, I do want to ask you from the volunteer experience, now that you've done some of this work, being at the Bread of Life, tell me a little bit more about that from your raw experience. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so it was definitely a different kind of thing than I've done in different previous volunteer experiences. It was a lot more, I feel like, intimate with the staff in the sense of they were telling us what they were doing and why they were doing it, but giving us a really good look behind the scenes as to the stuff that we could actually help with on an interior level, more than just, providing the volunteer service. So while we did, get to experience their evening meal and we helped prepare food, we helped distribute food as well as interact with the different guests that came in and needed support. But we were also able to take a look at the facility as a whole and experience truly not only their staff, but the intent behind what they were doing by
Mm-hmm.
being able to see kind of the different workings that had to go on behind the scenes, and they gave us their history and their mission statement, which we were obviously aware of beforehand, but seeing it in action was definitely different, and understanding that we were there not only to provide our physical support but to also back them in another way to make a change in the community, really made it more than just a day of service and things of that nature. So at least from my perspective, going in as a volunteer, in our first event, it was really a revolutionary experience in the sense of I really got to see how it is to not just be a volunteer, but to be someone that really wanted to make a difference on a larger scale than just helping out at the most basic level. So while we did get to do that, and that was extremely rewarding, and I believe all of my volunteers who came that day would say the same, I think being able to be part of the change and being able to make amends in parts that maybe they're lacking in, and understanding
Mm,
when we got a tour of the facility, and they told us, here's maybe parts where we can support our community better, or here's parts where maybe the community is lacking and they need support in this area to, boost their spirits or boost their mental health. I think all of that together with providing the normal volunteer experience was more in the nature of being able to provide a change than I had been in my previous experiences at Operation Smile, at the Brain Exercise Initiative, at obviously the Red Cross Society, and all of those were extremely rewarding in their own regards. But I felt like for my own personal values and for what I want to do moving forward, the most, the most, I guess, heartfelt way for me to express everything
mm,
that I
yeah,
wanted to do. Um, and I
absolutely.
believe that going forward with bigger groups of volunteers and more backing and manpower, we'll be able to actually provide even greater amounts of that. And I saw that as we were going in as a smaller group, but as we go on, the plan is to have groups who do maybe different communities per week, or and have team leads at each position. And that would allow for people to also experience things that maybe I saw it differently as someone who I know was
Mm,
leading the charge, and thinking about what to do in the future to do even better the next time we come around there or any other place. Um, but I know that there'll be responsibilities like that for people if they want that, and I know that even on a level of just if you want to volunteer in any regard, with any time you can, it was more rewarding in the sense of I got to be the change that I wanted to see, and more than just providing services that someone else told me to do.
absolutely. And I got to give you props because you've done phenomenal work. Is watching you sort of go from that sort of small steps into now the leader in it has been really rewarding, even for me. But I do want to ask you, what was a moment during that first event that convinced you this was the right direction? If you were to pinpoint one moment or one experience during that time that you felt like, man, I really made a good choice by not only starting
Mhm.
this initiative, but gathering up the volunteers and being there for the community.
Mhm. Well, I would say that there were two key moments for me. And the first one was an interaction with a lady while I was helping serve the evening meal. And she didn't have to or anything, but she just, as she was going about, she just said, this kind of work that you guys are doing, it's really making a difference, and you didn't have to be here but you are, and it makes my life a lot better. And honestly, from just like a humanitarian perspective, I felt like it really did complete that part, that I wanted to be
Right.
on the ground helping people from that aspect. And I think the other key moment for me was I was able to talk to one of the team leads at Bread of Life and ask them kind of about their journey as a volunteer at Bread of Life, and then also ask about what they saw that needed maybe to be boosted in their community as well as at their facility in order for them to provide more. Um, and I believe that hearing the experience from him, which we have in our upcoming video vlog about that event that'll be posted on our webpage and I believe on the Envision Difference main page, um, was a really moving experience. And he talked about what brought him to Bread of Life, what he's seen at Bread of Life, and just from hearing about what he thought they needed was really changed the perspective I have on the nonprofit scene as a whole and what it means to really give back to the community, because it
Mm,
wasn't just seeing that I provided food to someone who needed it. It was seeing through someone else's eyes, which also, added perspective onto what I already knew, but it was also seeing what they needed that really shifted to my perspective from providing on the basic level to providing how can I make a difference if that makes
Large
sense, in
scheme
the
of things.
community
Yeah. Mm,
on a larger scale. So it was not only what I wanted to do, which was fill what I saw Envision Difference maybe needed to bring back, which was the boots on the ground work, but also through the Difference in Action initiative, I was able to make more of a change as I thought about how I could go about making this part of Envision Difference and expanding the nonprofit as a whole to be able to provide the biggest footprint that I could, and leaving behind good while I'm up here in Boston.
absolutely. And I want to harp on one key point with your first key moment. When you look at the large scheme of things, a meal, large scheme of things, is something simple. But from the perspective of the unhoused individual, it's a big moment for them. And I think it's really important to sort of take that perspective into action because for us, we are grateful for everything through the nonprofit and having the meals that we've been able to provide. Having that feedback is really fulfilling. I can recall one specific moment like yours where we were in the street. We weren't even part of an organization where we were handing out, sandwiches and meals that we made ourselves. And the feedback was, you guys don't have to be here, but you are. And we really, really appreciated it, um, you know, as a community. And it really, to me, it was life changing because in the big scheme of things, it doesn't seem like much, but on that scale, that's a very important step for somebody, not only to help themselves, but also those around them. You know, Chris, I must say, like, obviously you've done phenomenal work. What are some of the myths or misconceptions about the unhoused community that you hope this initiative can address? If there's one or two key points that you can just touch up on, would love to hear your feedback on.
hmm So I think the biggest thing that I took away from the experiences that I've had so far, not only running this project, but looking for new things to do, is that I feel like most people, they see the unhoused community and they see all these facilities and they're like, okay, well, someone's taking care of them. And I believe that that is a larger misconception because there's always the need for more volunteers. They're always not necessarily understaffed, but they always have room for improvement. And I
Right.
think with going into the mindset of there's always going to be someone else who can do it is just inherently incorrect because just being the change and being able to physically, like you said, provide a meal. I think at that point, I was helping prepare the plates that they were putting all the food on. And even just doing that small part, I was like, I'm still playing a role in making this person's day better and making this person's mental health better because they feel more cared about. So I think that's one of the things that I definitely want to change about
Mm,
the whole mental health community, or unhoused community. And I think another one that I want to touch on was by the same nature, mental health, which I think a lot of people are starting to understand more is a bigger crisis and needs to be taken care of a lot more in recent years. But I think still going under the assumption that, there's always, I can always go to therapy or I can always do this or there's always someone to help me take care of it, but always pushing it down the road. And I
right.
think seeing that paired with how that can impact even especially the unhoused community pairs very poorly and leads, I think, to definitely exaggerated results. So I think
Mm,
also the whole scheme of maybe it's not something that I have to do personally, but someone else will take care of, or pushing it down the road, like I'll volunteer next week, or maybe I'll do it next time I get the opportunity. I think it's always a do now situation when you can. And I think another thing that I wanted to touch on, another myth, was that sorry, I lost it, but it'll come back to me.
that's okay. And I think these myths are extremely important. And the first one, particularly, is something that we have seen, from the beginning that we've started this nonprofit. The idea is that there is enough. There's never enough. Even when there are services, we actually saw ourselves as the people connecting the individuals that need it with those specific services that are available. Not to say that there aren't there isn't availability of help. There is, but some people don't know how to find it. And if they do know how to find it, they don't know how to continue with it. And I think this initiative is a great opportunity for us to showcase not only our diligence, but also our passion for change, our passion to continue on improving on this field, the mental health crisis, the unhoused crisis. Sometimes they go hand in hand. And I think having those myths brought down could actually motivate people to volunteer. Like you said, somebody could say, well, I'll volunteer next week, but do now, I think would be an amazing lead way to fix this notion that, I can do it tomorrow. And that's within everything in life. I mean, it was the same thing for us when we started the nonprofit, when we were trying to get our funding, when we were trying to not only get our recognition status, it was like, you need to do it now, as there will be other things that we need to do. Chris, you have become a leader at Envision. I want to thank you for your time, for your effort, and your work so far has helped a lot of people, not only on the unhoused side, but also on our board side and also our volunteers. Um, Again, everybody who's listening and tuning in out there, please feel free to check out our website. You'll learn more about the initiative, what the goals are. We'll also be releasing a video in the near future about that specific event that we've just discussed extensively. So, Chris, thank you so much for your time. Keep up the good work, and we hope to continue making an impact. And we hope you can all join us on the next episode. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.